So, all right, so this is probably going to be a little longer than the past meetings, but I hope it's more entertaining. All right, so a key part of my proposal involves an ordinance that attempts to restrict the cyclist position on the road, and this is a subject that's there's a lot of misconceptions about, and so I wanted to give this presentation so that we'd all understand, we'd all have the background knowledge to make informed decisions about this ordinance and about cyclist position on the road. All right, so how do we regulate any driver's position on the road? Well, first thing you have to understand is that bicycles are vehicles and cyclists are drivers of vehicles. This is true, of course, in the common sense of what, of the meaning of the word vehicle. It's also true in the legal sense that cyclists are subject to all the same rules as drivers of other vehicles. And it's also true in the sense of the technical characteristics of a bicycle and how it moves is basically the same. It moves in basically the same way as other vehicles, and that's why we regulate it the same way. Okay, so when we form traffic regulations, we have certain expectations for us. And I'd like you to think about how the traffic regulations that you operate under accord with these expectations. So first of all, we expect them to be clearly specified. We want to know unambiguously how to comply with the law, and whether what we're doing is legal or not. Should not be subject to interpretation. We also expect the rules to be uniform over large areas, so that we can travel around and we don't have to know separate rules for every different place that we go, and so we don't have to be in the position of being accused of violating a rule that we had no idea existed. We expect them to be the same for all drivers, and so that we can get in or off of one vehicle and into or on another vehicle and not have to learn a separate set of rules. And so that when we see someone else on the road, we know what they're going to do because there's one set of rules that we can expect them to follow. We don't have to get close enough to identify what kind of vehicle they're driving and then sift through a list of sets of rules and figure out which one, because by that time it'll be too late. Our chance to react will be over. By the way, feel free to interrupt me at any time if you have any questions. So we also expect them to be compatible with human perception and cognition, and we expect them to be compatible with the way vehicles move, what their operating characteristics are, and the standard rules of the road that we normally use, and the ones that we've been using for over 100 years have kind of have become standard because they've kind of risen to the top as being effective given our abilities. And we also expect them to offer us the trust and flexibility that we need to respond to the conditions as they are in the moment. The road and traffic are dynamic. There's an element of unpredictability, and we need to be able to respond to the conditions that we see. There's no formula or algorithm that can tell us exactly what we have to do. We have to respond to what we see. And I'd just like you to imagine what would happen if one of these wasn't true, how difficult it would be to travel. Okay, so I'd like to divide the class of vehicles into two groups: wide vehicles and narrow vehicles. Now, the typical wide vehicle is like a car, and there's and a typical narrow vehicle, I guess, would be a bicycle. But there are many different types of wide vehicles and many different types of narrow vehicles. And there is somewhat of a difference in the needs of a driver who's operating one versus the other. So, okay, so examples of narrow vehicles, we have, well, a horse, most animals would be, that uses a vehicle would be narrow vehicles. We have a pretty typical looking bicycle. We have a recumbent bicycle. There's a bicycle with a trailer, a recumbent tricycle. We have a pedicab. This is a velomobile. It's cutaway view, so you can see the inside. It's kind of a cross between a tricycle and a kayak. And we have a motor scooter, and then we have a full-on motorcycle. So these are all narrow vehicles, and everything I say about lane position is really applicable to all narrow vehicles. I don't know, have any of you taken a motorcycle safety course? No? Okay. Well, in a motorcycle safety course, they teach you very similar things about positioning as they would in a bicycle safety course. Okay, now here's the real difference between wide vehicles and narrow vehicles. A wide vehicle, you don't really have to worry much about position because you don't have much choice in your position. And you tend to dominate whatever space you're in, so you don't need to worry about your space being encroached on by other drivers. But for narrow vehicles, choosing the right position on the road is more critical and more complex than with wide vehicles. And to illustrate this, I made a list of all the factors that go into a choice of lane position. I'd like you to, if you could pass that out for me, thank you. So it's very complex, and I'm not going to go through this entire list item by item, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to show you some scenes, and we're going to try to identify what the factors are that would go into choice of position in that scene. All right. First of all, okay, what are the advantages of taking a good position as a driver of a narrow vehicle? Thank you. First of all, taking a good position helps us avoid stationary hazards. We don't want to run into them. It gives us a clear view of the road and the traffic all around us. It allows us to ride in a predictable course so that other people are not surprised by what we do. It allows other drivers to notice us early from a distance away and to react to what we're doing properly. And it discourages them from making dangerous maneuvers that people tend to do when they're confused. And it also gives us room to maneuver or escape from any surprise that we encounter. By escape, I mean to leave the flow of traffic.
Eli,
yes.
A question, if I may.
Sure.
Are you going to get to clear view going the other direction of the bicyclists being in clear view?
That is what I meant by notice, react early.
Okay.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah. So you want to be able to see what's going on around you, and you want other people to be able to notice you easily. And of course, the disadvantages of a bad position, of course, you're exposed to stationary hazards. Your view is obstructed or cluttered. You make your environment unpredictable, which makes you prone to making erratic maneuvers. Other drivers will tend to overlook you or react poorly to you, and you encourage them to make those dangerous maneuvers because you surprise them or confuse them. And you have no room to maneuver or escape from any surprises. Okay, so this should be a familiar scene to you guys. First of all, for the cyclists, we'll give all of you guys a break for the first scene. What factors do you notice here that might affect your position on the road?
It's a narrow lane.
It is a narrow lane. Anyone else?
It curves to the right and the view is obstructed.
That's right. Sharp curve to the right. The view is obstructed. Right. You want to. Also, there's a mountain in the way. You don't want to crash into that. So you can't. So you want to be able to see as far as you can around that curve, and you want other people who are behind you to seat you as far back as possible. Okay, again, this should be familiar. All right. Now everyone's fair game. What factors do you see that might affect cyclist position?
Bad pavement.
Okay, bad pavement. Anyone else?
Storm break.
Good. Anyone else? We have a pothole here. We have a curb. We don't want to crash into the curb. We have sand collecting next to the curb. The most notable thing for me here is this car coming out of East Street. This is a drive-out hazard. We don't want to get into a situation where that car pulls in front of us and we can't, and we don't have any room to either go around or make possibly make an emergency turn into East Street. All right, here we have our model of a narrow lane, made even narrower by this truck and this van that's encroaching on our lane. We want to stay away from both of those. How about this? What do you guys notice about this scene?
Weather.
Yeah, it's
Wet pavement.
yeah, it's raining and the pavement is wet. That means reduced visibility and reduced traction. There's one other thing that I want you guys to notice here.
There's a vehicle that's crossed the center line.
That's true. It's because it's going around me. That's why.
Okay.
But what I had in mind is, yeah.
I was going to say, if you're not used to riding a bicycle, when that reflective paint gets wet, you might as well be on ice.
Okay, good point.
You want to be riding on that white line.
No,
Yeah.
absolutely not.
So
Plus you have water accumulating over by the curb.
that's true. And the other important thing is there's a right turn lane right there, and here I want to go straight, so I want to get in the straight through lane, and I have to be in a position that lines me up with the straight through lane. Here we have the road covered with snow. The only reasonable thing to do is to ride in the tire track where it's mostly clear. Here we have a car door. This is a big problem for a lot of cyclists, being hit by car doors, or dooring as it's called. So we want to stay far enough away from parked cars that if a door opens, we're not going to run into it. We also want to stay far enough away that if a door opens, it won't startle us and cause us to veer into passing traffic.
Most of the person getting out of that car has a cane, so we have to be extremely careful.
Good point. Yes.
Sorry. I hadn't noticed that from here, but
Yeah, I actually didn't notice that either. So it was good. It was a good catch. Okay, so now I'm going to show you some animations and some video that show how crashes occur and how to avoid them. Okay. So first of all, we just talked about dooring, so let's look at dooring in an animation. All right, here we go. Okay, so bicycle comes along, door opens, cyclist is thrown out in front of the truck. That's the normal mode. That's normally what happens when a cyclist runs into an opening door. Now, the way to avoid that is we stay out of this red area, which includes the door zone and the startle zone.
What's that red lane there? Is that a bicycle lane?
This red line just indicates the area, the danger area, the place where we
Okay.
want to stay out of. It's not actually part of the road. Yes.
if I may interrupt just a
Absolutely.
second, Councilman, you raised a question about the person getting out of the car after they open the door.
Oh, he had a cane. And maybe
guard,
there was,
right? Yeah.
maybe there was a handicap
Possibly,
plate there, and everything else, a handicap plate. That's
Now,
why I asked.
I just wanted to tell you, the best advice I have ever come upon of what to do if you're bicycling and that car door opens in front of you is you turn into the V of the door of the car.
You come down Carter Street in your truck, your motor vehicle, no matter what it is, you go up Union Street, It happens constantly.
Oh,
in this
on-
town.
on-
Okay,
on
I mean, so
those-
it just doesn't happen to bicycles, that's all.
Oh, absolutely, but that's why, one, you watch before you get out of your car, and two, you stay far enough out that you don't hit the door.
Some cities wouldn't let you get out in the traffic lane, you have to get out on the passenger side. The way cars are built today with the console, you can't get across.
Can't do it, right. I remember those rules.
Yeah, and in fact, the law does say you're required to check behind you before opening your car door, but how many people will remember to do that all the time? Do you want, right, if you're a cyclist, do you want to count on that? Okay. Then we have the side swipe, or buzzing, it's also called. So here, we're cyclists, we're all the way at the edge. And here we have cars passing us way too close, and we go over this pile of rubble, which is not good at all, and then we get hit with the side of this trailer. So, how does this happen? Why wasn't anyone leaving enough room? There are many possible reasons, but one of the main reasons is that from far back, it's hard to tell whether there's enough room or not. So if we're coming up on someone, we generally, we see them all the way over. It looks like there's enough room when we get close, and oh no, right? I guess I'm going to have to try to squeeze by. So what we need to do is send a clear signal so that people can see from far back that there is not enough room. And when we do, they oblige us by passing with plenty of room when there's a gap. Like that. And we also avoid the rubble over here.
Now in that animation, does that bike go back
Does it go back?
to the right-hand side of the road?
Um,
Or does it stay in the middle?
If the lane is too narrow to share, you do not go back.
Yeah,
You maintain control of the lane.
Yeah, this lane is too narrow to share. So, yeah, so.
I believe at the beginning of the animation, the bicycle was in fact at the edge
Yeah, well,
and was still
that's
being
what I asked.
buzzed.
That's what I asked.
Right. So Union Street, Cottage Street, I'm actually in the left tire track
Or Route 10.
when I go through there.
Or Route 10. Or Route 10.
Route 10 where?
Route 10 coming
10.
into town from the south, from the
Yeah,
north.
from Northampton.
Given how busted
It's
up,
got a big shoulder, but it's in there.
given how busted up that pavement is to the right side, I would probably be controlling the lane going through there.
Yeah, so it depends on a number of factors. There is something of a shoulder, so it might be
18 feet.
possible to stay somewhat right of the center. But
The shoulder is 12 to 18 feet on Route 10.
Well,
Oh,
there,
yeah,
yeah. Okay, I'm sorry. I was talking just as we come into town, just before we make the left turn and come up to
Okay.
the.
you're talking about.
I was talking about the height.
That part of Route 10. So there, yeah, you have some options, right? You could ride on the shoulder. There are some hazards to that. There's, but it wouldn't be unreasonable. When I do it, I usually ride in the lane, but off to the edge, and I use the shoulder as kind of an escape area. It would also wouldn't be unreasonable to ride in the center of the lane there either. But personally, I rarely find that necessary. But it's up to each individual cyclist what they feel is necessary, how much caution they think is warranted. Okay. Now, most car-on-bike collisions happen in intersections, the vast majority. And there are three main types of these crashes, which have these names: right hook, left cross, and drive out. So let's look at those. So here's the right hook. Yeah. So how did this happen? All right. First of all, the cyclist is on the right, which according to the, you know, the destination positioning rule, you know what I mean when I say that? So, it's a rule that applies to all drivers. It says when you're approaching an intersection, you position yourself according to your destination. You go to you stay on the right if you're turning right. You move to the left if you're turning left. You somewhere in the middle if you're going straight. This cyclist is sending a strong signal that they plan to turn right, even though they don't really plan to turn right. They're also in a pretty inconspicuous position, and right at about this point, they're in the motorist blind spot. Right, they're behind them and to the right, so the motorist can't see them at all there. How to prevent this? Right in the center of the lane, motorists will make the turn behind us. In a wide lane, same thing happens. Now, in a wide lane, the destination positioning rule would allow us to move to the left of the lane, and in that case, the motorist can pass us on the right and make the turn before we get through the intersection. Okay. The left, all right, the left cross. Here's the left cross. Okay. So how did
Bicyclists should be prepared to stop that time.
well, the bicyclist had the right of way there.
That's besides the point.
Well,
There's still rules of the road. You
No.
have to be alert, and you
No.
should be
No, sir.
prepared
The
to stop.
cyclist had the right of way.
Cyclist has the right of way. It's the vehicle going straight through.
It's a vehicle.
Go for
It's
that.
the vehicle going straight through has the right of way. Now, that doesn't mean you have to be
That
stupid
doesn't mean
about
that
it.
you can't be cautious on your bicycle.
Oh, that's true. Absolutely. Cyclists
I
should
mean,
be
every one of these
Cyclist doesn't
pictures
weigh
is just
4,000
showing a
pounds.
bicycle keep going, and we're coming to the intersection. They're not looking left or right to see what's going on.
Well,
All those accidents should have been avoidable, in my estimation.
Oh yes, they are avoidable, and so.
what Eli is doing is showing you the way bicyclists endeavor to avoid them.
Yeah. Okay. So how does this happen? This motorist, when he makes the left turn, he or she? Where are they looking? They're looking here for cross traffic. They might be looking here. Here and here for traffic coming this way. They're definitely not looking here. So, the best way to be seen is to be where people are looking for you.
And you have to be also looking at them.
Absolutely. Yes.
All right.
You do. You have to pay attention. And here's an example of that coming right up. What happens when they don't notice you? You still have room to maneuver around them. I'll go back to where the crash actually occurs. Here you don't have room to maneuver around them. You'd have to go all the way around the full length of the car.
Bicyclists could have braked.
Maybe, maybe not. Depends on how fast they were going.
Looks like the road is dry. You should have been able to stop the bicycle.
Oh, especially if you're approaching an intersection.
Yeah. You gotta be cautious on both sides, the car and the bicycle.
Oh,
And I mean, you're just showing, I mean, that's what's bothering me about this whole video. They're showing the bike going and the car going, and nobody's letting up on the bicyclist isn't letting up on the pedals, and the driver isn't letting up on the accelerator to ride their brake coming into an
Well,
intersection.
that's true. I mean, there's a limit to how much the animation can show, but yes, you
Yeah,
have.
but I mean, but the idea of it is, when we're writing the final draft, we have to take that into consideration.
Right, but
That's all.
yes, everyone does need to pay attention and react to what happens. But I mean, a lot of times there are crashes even if people are paying attention, or near, if there's not a crash and there's a near crash, and it's still worth avoiding that. You don't want to put yourself in a dangerous position and then rely on your reflexes to get you out of it. It's better just to stay out of that situation. Okay. and the drive out. So here, the cyclist at the edge enters the motorist line of sight here, which is not very far away, because this is showing how these trees on the corner are blocking the view. It doesn't have to be something actually blocking the view. It could just be something cluttering up the view and making you less conspicuous. But if we move over a little, then suddenly the motorist can see us from way back here instead of over here. And also, again, we have room to maneuver, right? If the motorist starts edging out, we don't want to be right where they're edging out. We can give ourselves a little margin so we can go around them. And that's what could have happened in that scene of beginning of East Street that I showed you. Okay. So now we've seen this in animation. Let's see it in action. Okay, so here we have an Orlando police officer. He's controlling the lane. He's avoiding the door zone. He gets to a place where there's room to move over, and he moves over, and now other traffic can pass. There's still this curb and a bunch of sand and stuff that he stays away from, but other traffic gets around him. And then he looks behind him. He's looking for a gap so he can get back into the flow after the traffic passes. And there he is. The lane is narrow again, and he's back in the flow. Of traffic. He's signaling. He's giving a pretty weak signal. I would have corrected him on that. Okay. And so here's an example of the or near the what they call the near side swipe where motorists are passing too closely. So here the cyclist, you're seeing the view from the back of the bike, and they're on the right side of the lane. And motorists they don't realize soon enough that they have to change lanes, so they end up squeezing past. It's a very uncomfortable situation for the cyclist.
Would you have a bike lane here, don't you?
No, that's a very narrow
There's no bike lane there?
No, shoulder.
Looked like a bike lane, didn't it?
No.
Now here's what happens when the cyclist is in the center of the lane. Everyone sees them from far back, make a complete lane change, give them plenty of room. Okay. All right. So, how do we balance our priorities when we're on a bicycle? The first priority should be safety. We need to drive defensively. we should also put some importance on our convenience. We don't want to, right, we have a right to the road and a right to travel in an efficient way. But subordinate to that, we should also be courteous to other drivers, and we should facilitate passing when it's safe and convenient. But we don't want to penalize cyclists for being cautious, and we don't want to penalize them for just wanting to travel efficiently. So, when does it make sense to move over and let other traffic pass? Well, there should be other traffic actually present. Otherwise, who are we moving over for? And they should be trying to pass, right? And they should be actually unable to pass, right? If they can already get around us, right, then there's no problem. The position we want to move to should be safe, and the movement to that position should be convenient. And finally, it should actually enable people to pass safely. If there's no way somebody's going to be able to pass safely no matter where we are, then there's no reason to move over. And in fact, doing so would probably encourage them to pass unsafely. Okay, so how do we, all right, so some things we need to know about evaluating a choice of position for a cyclist. I can't stress this enough. I mean, there's no formula or algorithm, but the rule of thumb you need to remember is more adverse conditions demand a more assertive position. Now, you've seen all of the factors that's involved. It seems like a very complex decision, and it is, but that doesn't mean it's a difficult decision because it's usually done intuitively. It's subconscious. What is difficult is explaining that decision to someone before or after the fact. But in order to make a judgment about a position, you have to be present. You have to see the environment that the cyclist is in, and take all the factors into account. And that's most people are not qualified to do that because the knowledge, the training, and experience is rare, which is something I, as a cycling instructor, would like to change. I would like more people to have the knowledge and the training and the experience that would help them understand what safe cycling looks like. So, who should choose what positions are acceptable or unacceptable for a cyclist? I hope I've convinced you that choosing a good position is an absolutely essential part of safe cycling. There are many factors to consider, and they can't be done at a glance. Either you need to do it intuitively because you're in the environment, or you need to make a thoughtful, reasoned judgment by considering all of the factors. The cyclist is in the best position to judge, and this is something that we usually acknowledge for other kinds of vehicle operators, whether they be cars, trucks, for airplane. If you're an airplane pilot or a ship captain, you're generally given the benefit of the doubt, right? You know what you're doing unless you do something really erratic. You don't get second guessed. As I said before, knowledge, training, and experience that would qualify someone to judge a cyclist position is rare, and we should not be making that judgment unless we are informed about what goes into it. And if we're making regulations, the police are the ones that have to enforce those regulations. And if they aren't qualified to make that judgment, that puts them in a difficult situation, and it also puts the cyclist in a difficult situation. Legal restrictions have a number of bad effects on cycling. First of all, they make my job as an instructor very difficult because it means not only do I have to teach people how to ride safely, but I have to do it in the face of some very strong messages that are telling them not to. It also causes crashes. People generally don't want to violate the law, or if they do, they don't want to risk getting caught. And so they tend to be timid, and when they're timid, they put themselves into dangerous situations and they can crash. It also discourages bicycle travel because people get the message that this is the way you're supposed to ride. They ride that way, they have a bad experience, it's scary, it's stressful, it's difficult, and they say, this sucks, bicycling is not for me, and they give it up. And they never get the message that there's another way to do it, or that the other way is legitimate. And they cause legal conflicts because of disagreements in what is an acceptable is and is not an acceptable position. Okay, this is the pyramid of let's say bicycle travel promotion, and right now we're standing here at the foundation of the pyramid. We're trying to promote a culture of respect for bicycling, or at least I am, for bicycle driving. And one thing that you as city councilors can do to build up this foundation is to make the city ordinances so that they send a message to cyclists that they are legitimate users of the road, that are deserving of the same rights and respect as all other travelers on the road. And basically, each of you has a brick in your hand with your name on it, and I'm asking you to step up to this pyramid and add your brick to this foundation. Thank you.